World Heavyweight Champion Diamond Dallas Page. It's a great honor for us of worldofwrestling.com. And I am Andrea Fossati, and here we have Ursula, which will help as a translator. Hi, Mr. Page. How are you doing?
Very good. Just about to head over to the DDP Yoga Performance Center, and that's where our corporate offices are.
Perfect. I will start with the interview. We would like to know why did you decide to become a wrestler in the first place?
Because it was something I loved as a child. It was a dream to become a wrestler.
So you was a fan growing up. There was a particular wrestler did you like as a young boy?
Yes, handsome Jimmy Valiant. There probably would be no Diamond Dallas Page without being influenced by handsome Jimmy. Also, Dusty Rhodes and superstar Billy Graham.
Great personalities. And I know that you have friends in the business before starting, such as Bam Bam Bigelow and other wrestlers. Did this help you entering in contact with the business?
You'll have to translate that one a little bit.
Maybe you were encouraged to become a wrestler because of other of your friends being wrestlers and letting them know the business.
Like Bam Bam Bigelow?
Yes.
I think we all, we had talked about it, and again, that's how a dream starts. It goes in your mind, and then you start to talk about it, and then you write it down, and then you start working towards it. That's how dreams become reality.
Okay, I know that you are a very versatile man. You have done many things. For example, before becoming a wrestler, you were a nightclub owner. Why did you leave this kind of business to become a wrestler? It's a bit strange.
Well, I love the nightclub business because I love the women and the party. And I was good at making people have a good time. And as a child, always wanting to be in wrestling, it never left me. And by happenstance and just moving towards that goal of getting, I didn't start as a wrestler, I started as a manager. I tried to wrestle when I was 22 years old, but it didn't work out for me. And then coming back at 31, I tried managing, and I got that pretty quickly. And I worked with the AWA, the American Wrestling Association, and then I worked with Dusty Rhodes for Florida Championship Wrestling as a manager and as a color commentator. And I never left my real job. Over that period, I was still running nightclubs, so I could do both. It was more of a hobby in the beginning.
And out of curiosity, this nightclub, do you still own it? It still exists?
Nope. I'm out of that business. I've been out for years.
Okay. I know that you have take your nightclub loving women personality to the wrestling business as a manager. Can you talk about this period of your career when you have the Diamond Dolls, the Cadillac, and all these kind of things?
It was just an exaggeration of my own personality. I had a lot of fun, playing wrestling manager. And my goal was to get to the WWF or the WCW, and it looked like that wasn't going to happen. I tried out with the WWF and I tried out with WCW as a color commentator and, as a manager. And because I'm 6'4" and a natural 220, I'm bigger than a lot of the wrestlers. That's before I put on another 30 pounds. So I thought it was over until Dusty Rhodes left the WWF and came back to WCW to be the booker and the writer, and then he brought me in. And then I got to still manage for about 5 months, and then they told me between the long blonde hair and the rap and the diamonds and the diamond dolls that I was too over the top. I was taking the attention away from the wrestler, and it wasn't my fault, it was just my personality. And I had 7 months left on my contract, and I said, screw this. I'm going to go to the WCW power plant, and I'm going to learn how to wrestle. At 35 and a half, everyone said I was crazy, that it couldn't be done, but I guess they were wrong.
So you were helped by Dusty Rhodes. You were also trained by him during this period at the WCW power plant?
Yes, I was trained there by Jody Hamilton, who was Assassin #1. But the real part of my training would come later under the tutelage of Jake the Snake Roberts.
That is your mentor and the man you helped throughout his most difficult time in life later, correct?
Well, without Dusty Rhodes, there is no Diamond Dallas Page, but without Jake Roberts, there's no 3-time world champion. So Jake, he guided me over those years, and just I got smarter in the business. I became a better storyteller, because that's all we are as wrestlers. We're storytellers, and when it comes to your opponent in the ring, the only reason there's not a good story there from time to time is because of ego. And if you both do what's right for the match and right for the angle, it can come out pretty cool.
I remember in particular your feud with Macho Man Randy Savage in 1997. In my opinion, it is one of the best feud I have ever seen, because you really seemed to hate each other on the scene. How can you do such a thing?
Well, it's like being an actor. Kevin Spacey or any number of actors are not these bad killers, evil people, but they can play an amazing evil person. We all have those traits. It's finding how to tap into them. And it was easy for me with Savage because I'd been denied an opportunity for so long. And it was about Kimberly. So it was easy to have real emotions through that. And Randy really knocked the hell out of you. When he dropped that elbow on you, he landed on you. You were his crash pad. So it was easy to get the intensity. You just had to get up to the same level as Randy. And I didn't have a problem with that. And we're both really good storytellers. So we wanted the best thing for the story.
And that was great, in my opinion. What was your first match ever? Did you remember it, how you felt through it?
Well, my first match when I was 22, as I wrestled like three different times, had 3 matches. They all sucked. It was horrible. My first match in WCW was on TV with Scott Hall. Scott Hall and I were tag team up together because since I used to manage him, and we wrestled just an enhancement guy and tag team, and I actually did pretty good. I was still really green, which means very young in the business. I had a lot to learn, but you're nervous, I learned they'd always be chewing gum before I went out there so my mouth wouldn't get so dry. Because when you get really nervous, you lose all the liquid in your mouth. It's really crazy. But if you have gum, it doesn't happen like that. Also, I wish I knew how to breathe the way I do now back then. Because it would have been way easier.
It would have been it easier to move, to spend less energy on a move, these kind of things.
Well, the only difference between excitement and fear, the only difference is whether you're breathing or not.
It's true.
So, through DDP Yoga, I have learned to breathe at a whole different level. Like, I literally can breathe in and out for 20 pretty quickly. If I'm in a meditative state, I can breathe in and out for 65.
I understand. Previously, you talk about the problem with the ego of wrestlers. I know that in WCW this was a great problem. It is true, or it is like stories told by the winner's side. How was the backstage in WCW? It was problematic.
I think it's not problematic in WCW. I think it's problematic everywhere. Especially in professional sports. If you don't think you're the best, if you don't think you're the very best to deserve the biggest opportunity, why should anybody else think that? So it's understandable. But at some point, you got to push your ego aside and do what's best. And that can be a challenge sometimes. Nobody wants to look bad. And considering wrestling's predetermined, nobody wants to lose. Nobody. Because it affects your money. It affects everything. So that's why people fight so hard, to make sure they get what they want.
Because the loser takes less money than the winner? In
the big picture, absolutely in the big picture.
Okay. And so there aren't really difference between what you have experienced in WCW and in the WWF locker room?
Well, more than anything, when I came there, I never realized it, but I was the enemy. I almost put them out of business. Not me personally, but I was a big part of that. And it was very close. It was, if WCW could have held on another 3 or 4 more months, it would have been a whole different outcome. So coming in there, I thought, remember when Scott and Kevin showed up in WCW?
Yes, in 1996, the Outsiders.
They killed everyone. Then Hulk Hogan switched over, and they killed everyone. Do you remember that?
Yes, with the NWO. It was great, really.
Right. Did WWE do anything like that when we came over?
Yes, and how it was to work with them, with so many stars.
They didn't do anything like that. Like, for them, it was like beat WCW down. So, but that's part of what their brand was about. Where Eric Bischoff, he wanted to make money. WWE was more, they were more concerned with their brand. And I get it, I just looking back, I would like not to have been the first person.
But in your opinion, what could have made WCW last longer?
It had ballooned up so big. It's like any business that becomes so big so fast, and your overhead grows when you get that big. It happens the same thing in a nightclub. I'll give you an example of a nightclub. A nightclub could make $200,000 on a weekend, and it might cost $140,000 to do that. What happens when the nightclub starts making $40,000? It still costs $140,000 to operate. It loses $100,000, right?
Yes.
Right. So that's what was happening with WCW. The contracts were so big. They were so big, and they kept getting higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And that's why there was such a problem. Because when the ratings came down, well, that meant less money was coming into the company. So if Ted Turner would have continued to own WCW, it never would have went away. But because Warner Brothers came in, and they didn't like wrestling, they were buying the network. They didn't want the wrestling. So they're the ones who got rid of it. And it just made it look like WWE won the war easily, but that's not really what happened. They canceled wrestling.
I remember there was a rumor that Eric Bischoff was going to buy WCW at the end and save it.
Well, let's put it like this. WWE is doing a whole story about that right now. And because no one really knows. I know, because I was there. And I know Eric Bischoff had the money. $50 million. He was buying the company. But for him to buy the company, Turner Broadcasting, a guy named Brad Siegel, said you have to keep it on TBS for 10 more years. That was part of the stipulation. Plus, Bischoff had to buy all the big contracts and have secured money on top of them. Hulks, mine, Goldbergs, Nash, Hall. He had to have all, that would have been another $40 million. And the guy who ran WCW, Jamie Kilmer, he just decided to cancel wrestling. Instead of taking the $90 million, he decided to cancel it. As you can imagine, he was fired pretty quickly after that.
It's a pity, because if WCW would have been around,